What do you do to innovate yourself? What do you do to disrupt yourself before someone disrupts you? That's what I want to talk about today. Netflix is perhaps what I might be known for, but Netflix was not my first company. Netflix was actually my 6th company. And through the companies that I've started, the ones I've worked with, the entrepreneurs I've met, I've learned a lot of things, but there's one important thing that if you take away nothing else from today, I want you to take away this. Anyone can do it. Anywhere can do it. Any company can do it. You do not need to be in Silicon Valley. You do not need special training. You do not need to have your employees have MBAs or computer science degrees. So if you don't need these things, what do you need to be more innovative in your company? I think you need 2 things. First, and perhaps most importantly, you need a tolerance for risk. Risk-taking is fundamental to any innovation. And I don't mean scary, dangerous risk. I mean the type of risk that says, I'm going to try something that I don't know where it goes. I'm going to be the kind of person who, when they're traveling, orders the thing off the menu that I have no idea what this tastes like. Because most of the time, taking risks is synonymous with innovation. It's trying something you've never tried before without knowing in advance where it goes. But the second thing you need is you need an idea. Ideas are the basis of innovation. But I'm going to point out, it does not need to be a big idea. Mark Zuckerberg just wanted to meet girls when he came up with the idea for Facebook. It doesn't need to be an original idea. People have been selling books since the printing press, but there was plenty of room for Jeff Bezos to innovate with Amazon. They've been renting cars since the wheel, and we're seeing tremendous things happening in transportation, like Uber and Lyft and relay rides and Getaround, the self-driving car. It doesn't need to be a complex idea. The Post-it note is a piece of paper. It sells more than $1 billion a year. In fact, I'd argue it doesn't even need to be a good idea. Because after all, what is a good idea? The only way to really find out is to do something. You have to do something. There's a famous expression that says no business plan ever survives collision with a customer. And it is so true. You're going to learn more in one day of doing something, or making something, or building something, or selling something than in a year of studying it. But it all has to start with an idea. And let's talk for a second about where ideas come from. People get stuck on this. They go, I want to innovate, but what do I do? Well, there's some classic ways that people in Silicon Valley look for ideas. They can look for new technologies, mobile, the Internet of Things, all things that are beginning to wash over your industry. But by far, the easiest way to find ideas is one thing that every single person in this room can do, and it's look for pain. You train yourself to see the world as an imperfect place. You begin to find all those flaws, those things that annoy you, that make your job harder. And once you get good at that, they're all around you. And I'm encouraging you, look for things that you know well. Look at your jobs. Look at the things you do every day. There are plenty of things that are broken all around us. Contrary to popular belief, ideas rarely spring fully formed into your head in some kind of eureka moment. You have to look for them. You have to dig. Like the idea for Netflix, for example, did not come from some moment of anguish over some mythical late fee on a movie. We were looking for that idea. It was buried in a big pile of bad ideas, and we did not find that idea in a video store. That idea we found while we were carpooling. And here's how that worked. So Reed and I both live in a little town called Santa Cruz, California, on the coast. And every day, Reed would pick me up in his car, and we'd commute the 45 to 50 minutes over the mountains to Sunnyvale, where the office was. And on the way there, we'd brainstorm ideas. And then I'd get to the office, and I'd go in and use my fast internet connection and my phone and my whiteboard, and I'd research these ideas. And at the end of the day, get back in the car, and we'd drive back, and I'd brief Reed on what I discovered. And we did this for months. hundreds of ideas, some good and some not so good. But one of the interesting things we noticed was that the half-life of an idea was 24 hours. That if you started out on Monday morning and you had 16 bright and shiny ideas all full of promise, that it turned out after only one day of research that about half of them weren't really very good, and you were down to 8. By Wednesday, you were probably down to 4. Thursday, maybe 2. And if you were lucky, by the end of the week, you had one idea which still showed enough promise you'd want to keep working on it. Now, one of the ideas that came up in this process was, let's do video rental by mail. $8 billion category, possibly could make this work. And I researched it, and it was a bad idea. Back then, in those dark ages, video came on those big video cassettes. They were expensive, they were heavy, and a little bit of research said this is never going to happen, and we abandoned it. Until a few months later, when a friend told Reed about this new technology called DVD. And Reed and I realized, something that small and that light might be able to be shipped a totally different way. So we turned the car around and drove to downtown Santa Cruz, went to a used record store and bought a used music CD, went next door to a stationery store and bought a little gift envelope, put the CD in the envelope, addressed it to Reed, went up the steps to the Santa Cruz post office, dropped it in the slot, and sent it off. And the very next morning, when Reed came to pick me up, he had the envelope in his hand. One day, unbroken, one stamp. And that was the moment where we said, this idea just might work. And that kicked us into a whole different phase. It was a validation phase. From here, I was trying to really figure out if this thing was real. How many DVD players were there? What would it cost me to build a website? How many titles had been released? How does this industry even work? But of course, I could not answer the most fundamental question of all, which is, how is a DVD rental by mail using DVDs actually going to perform? There was certainly no other company I could look at and see how well they had done. It was a completely blank slate. And no matter how much I researched, there was no way to establish with any degree of certainty at all that it's going to work. This happens so frequently, any place innovation is taking place, that we actually have a word for what it is you have to do when you reach that point where there's nothing more to learn, where you're faced with contradictory, inconclusive, and totally unreadable information. And we have a phrase for it, and the phrase is, you've just got to do it. Well, we actually throw in a modifier after just, but you get the idea. You have to just do it. There's no way to find out whether it works without trying it. And so, we did. We tried everything. We tried punch cards. We tried buy one, get one free. We tried promotional tie-ins. We tried hundreds of ideas, and we were looking for this proverbial needle in a haystack. What was the one thing that would eventually catch on? And at first, when we had new innovations to try, we'd polish them up. We'd make them perfect. We'd check the spelling, we'd obsess about what the images were, we'd make sure there was no bugs, we'd fully build out the feature set. But unfortunately, doing it that way was slow. Maybe one new innovation every 3 or 4 weeks. But worse, we realized that almost all that time polishing it up was wasting time because we were almost always polishing the wrong thing. Because customers continually surprised us about what they liked, what they used, what they tried. And we realized that if it was a good idea, it would shine through no matter how poorly implemented it was. And if it was a bad idea, it wouldn't work no matter how well we polished it up. And eventually we began going faster and faster and faster. And the faster we went, the more we learned. And the lesson we took away is that the key to innovation is not about having good ideas. It's about building a system to try lots of bad ones. It's a volumes game. So if you really want to understand how Silicon Valley innovates so quickly, it's simple. They've just built a system that makes them great at trying lots of bad ideas. And there's a name for companies who are great at trying lots of bad ideas. They're called startups.